I'm Virginia Eskin. All year long, I really look forward to summer. It's a time to pick up a book, sit back, gaze out at a beautiful scene, and there's a lot of music that has summer as its theme. Let's have a listen to the sound of summer on A Note to You. You certainly know what that means when you hear bees buzzing around. To me, that's also part of summer. I think of picnics, vacation, maybe concerts out in the open, and inevitably, little bugs do make their way onto one's blanket. And as a performer, sometimes bugs really dive bomb the music, or because you're playing under stage lights, they love to attack your ears or your legs. It can be quite confusing to be playing outdoors in the summertime. But our program is going to explore this sort of languid quality that composers have put into music. Let's lead off with a Middle Ages version. This is a famous little ditty. It's called Sommervise, and it's sung by the choir of New College in Oxford, conducted by Edward Higginbottom.
Sing, cor, cor, sing, cor, cor, sing.
Nice little round. It was called Sommervise, and I found myself thinking of three blind mice, because that's the way it built up. So it'd be very easy for anybody to sing, and maybe that's why it's such a well-known little round, or sometimes it could be called a canon. When you try to put sort of images into music, what are you left with? It reminds me of Impressionism in painting, all the glimmering and the use of white and all the beautiful pastel shades. And the next piece I want to share with you has a very glimmery quality. It was written by a Norwegian woman composer, Agathe Grøndahl, and it's called Summer Song. To me, it really evokes that far northern kind of purity, and she writes very nicely these little sounds sort of like aspen leaves twinkling kind of, in the moonlight, and then the melody is really very simplistic. She's not considered one of the lionesses as women composers go, but she was born back in the middle of the 19th century, and she lived until 1907 in Norway, and she apparently wrote a lot of piano compositions and some song cycles, and they all have very nice names, and this one is called Sommervise, which means summer song. Here it is. little ditty by Agathe back at Grøndahl. And I don't really play a lot of her music, but I remembered that she'd written a piece called Summer Song, and I thought it would go nicely with the next one, which is written by another Norwegian, Edvard Grieg. And he lived about the same time, and we know that he used to go to his country place, probably on a fjord called Trollhaugen, and he used to like to spend his summers composing there. Grieg was iconized and made into a national figure, and the country of Norway encouraged him to compose and set him up as the head of the conservatory, and then they encouraged him to go to his house and write more music. So here's Grieg's version of A Summer Evening. That was Edvard Grieg's Summer Evening, played by Andrei Gavrilov. And we're exploring the sound of summer today on the program. And I liked the way Grieg had sounded like nightingales, didn't it? And that simple melody. You could just imagine somebody around one of those Arctic evenings where the light never gets dark. People stay awake all night. They fall in love, go on all-night picnics, all sorts of mischief. Well, our next piece is quite different. It's a chamber music piece, and it's for wind quintet. And it apparently was commissioned by Carl Haas, the well-known radio announcer, back in 1954. And it's a cute story that apparently in Detroit, which is where he lived at the time, the commission came out of a kind of a groundswell, and quite a few people donated to the composition of this piece. And he'd run into people on the street, and they'd say, well, how's my piece doing? And that's kind of a nice thing where ordinary citizens got involved in the writing of this piece. Here it is, Samuel Barber's Summer Music. was Summer Music by Samuel Barber, and it was for wind quintet, and it was played by the Reykjavik Wind Quintet, which is the principals of the Iceland Symphony. On today's program, almost all the music you're going to hear would be classified, I think, as light, and I think that's appropriate because our theme is summer. Our next selection is very interesting. The violinist Gideon Kramer is at a point in his life where he's so successful that he can afford to indulge himself in projects. Nice point to be at in your life. And he's a big admirer of tangos, and in particular, Astor Piazzolla, who's the sort of tango king, or was. And he got the brilliant idea of bonding the famous 4 season pieces by Vivaldi and putting Piazzolla's versions of the seasons in between. And it's a kind of a unusual thing to do. In programs, sometimes, you'll put Vivaldi and then you'd put Piazzolla. But to make a sandwich of them and stir them all up together, that's kind of a new concept. And he's formed this very crack band of string players called the Kremerata. That's after his name, of course, Kramer. Kremerata Baltica. The CD has a beautiful little booklet that goes with it with all kinds of allusions to space and sky, and it even has a poem by the famous Russian poet Joseph Brodsky called Clouds in the middle. So I think Gideon Kramer is really going out on a limb here. He's trying to be very poetic and creative, and he achieves that. We've taken the summer portion from this new CD. First you'll hear the Vivaldi, the famous one, and then right after that, without stopping, you'll go to the Piazzolla. It's called Summer in Buenos Aires. Wow, that was a sultry version of the Vivaldi Summer from the Four Seasons, and it was paired with Piazzolla's Summer in Buenos Aires, and it's a very unusual thing to do. Gideon Kramer was playing all the fancy violin solos, and boy, they had huge contrasts, and I found myself thinking, what a dynamic realization, and I have a feeling Vivaldi would really like it, although he's a Venetian, being paired with an Argentinian, but I think it works. And it's this unusual CD that Gideon Kramer conceived, and he has this wonderful band backing him up, the Kramerata Baltica. Well, I hope you're having a nice trip with us with all these summer sounds. I'm Virginia Eskin, and today's program is our salute to summer. If you have comments, do write to us. Our address is A Note to You, care of WGBH Radio, 125 Western Avenue, Boston, Massachusetts, 02134. The email address is anotetoyou@wgbh.org. A Note to You is made possible by the friends and alumni of Northeastern University. I'm having a good time exploring bee sound, as you can tell. I think different bees, honeybees, bumblebees, I'm sure they all have their own pitches. And it obviously has appealed to musicians over the years. There's an interesting piece here that I'm looking at that was sent to me from a scholar up at Dartmouth College, and it's by a woman named Johanna Beyer. She's written a cute little piece called Bees, and the description that goes with it is the bees are so busy. They're so busy. They're gathering honey from trees and flowers all day long, and the sky is bright and the fragrance is overwhelming. And she puts two notes together and then two notes going down. And she puts them together. Sounds very bee-like, doesn't it? Here it is. So that's a little pianistic version of Bee Sound, written by Johanna Beyer back in the 1930s. Our next exploration is going to be a little song. It's by a man, Johannes Somary, and it's called Bee, I'm Expecting You.
I'm expecting you, were saying yesterday to somebody you know that you are due. But from my start home last week, I sat on land at work, birds mostly back, the clover warm and thick. You get my letter by the
cute little ditty. That was Be, I'm Expecting You, sung by the Amor Artis Chorale. Susan Folari was the violist, and Somary was the conductor. So the conductor composed that piece. It's nice. Now, our next insect piece is by Albert Roussel, and it's a ballet. It's called The Spider's Feast or The Spider's Banquet. And I've always been intrigued by this piece. The whole thing is long. It's 31 minutes long. We can't hear the whole thing today. But I would love to see it mounted by one of the good ballet companies. I don't think it has been done recently. And what you are supposed to hear in the music is that the spider is up in his web and he looks out over a beautiful garden and he sort of is getting hungry. And he's wondering who he's going to eat. He looks down and he sees dung beetles. He sees some fruit maggots and a praying mantis. And he even sees a beautiful butterfly. And unfortunately, he does take big chunks out of the creatures I first mentioned. But the praying mantis takes a big chunk out of him. And in the ballet, it gets very dark in the middle where all of that bad stuff is happening. And then as the ballet goes on, everything sort of goes back to normal. And the spider does not go back up into his web because he was done in by the praying mantis. And they think that Roussel was using the feast of the spider and the garden sort of as maybe an allegory on the human race, confronting the great sovereign power that goes on in a garden, and especially with all the insects. So here's a portion of The Spider's Feast by Albert Roussel. That was just a portion of the Albert Roussel ballet called The Spider's Feast. Couldn't you hear how that spider was coming down his silky thread to gobble up any unlucky creature who was in his path? So that was played by the Gulbenkian Orchestra with Michel Sverchevsky conducting. We're going to go now to the nice velvety side of summer, away from those dreadful creatures that sting us and bite on us. We're going to go to a beautiful piece that Frederick Delius wrote. But before that, I want to just say a few stanzas from a beautiful poem that Donald Hall wrote about summer. Your peonies burst out, white as snow squalls, with red flecks at their shaggy centers. In your border of prodigies by the porch, I carry one magnanimous blossom indoors and float it in a glass bowl, as you used to do. And all around us, peonies and roses are just bursting out. It's such a nice time of year, and this Delius piece is very evocative of all the gorgeous things of summer and of late spring. And the piece has all sorts of evocations, water lilies, poplars. In the program notes, he was in love with roses, lilies, and sweet-scented flowers. And apparently he would go to this place in the country where he composed this. And his wife was a fine painter, Jelka. And as he would compose, she would be painting flower studies on the terrace below. So imagine yourself in the beautiful English countryside. And it's very pointillistic, this kind of music. And this is Delius's Summer Night on the River. That was The Smooth and Dreamy Side of Summer. That was a tone poem by Frederick Delius called Summer Night on the River. And it was composed back in 1911, and it was played by the London Philharmonic with Vernon Handley conducting. And I found myself hearing that familiar cuckoo sound in the very beginning. We've had sort of cuckoos in several of the pieces on today's program. The original Middle Ages one, The Summer is a Comin' In, had that third interval. And I think all the music on today's program has been really very languorous and it's pretty. It's not heavyweight, but the summer is the perfect time to have something that's kind of goes down nicely. We're going to end the program with the classic song. It's George Gershwin's Summertime. And it's so delicious. You just imagine fried chicken falling off the bone and a nice pecan pie. And I just sort of think of summer cooking and southern delicacies when I hear this music. I guess because it comes from Porgy and Bess. Here it is, Summertime. That was Summertime by Gershwin, sung by Sylvia McNair, and Ted Taylor was playing the piano. Well, that ends our little summer trip, and I hope you have a very nice summer. I hope we don't have too much heat and just the right amount of rain, because all the flowers are really starting to burst out. Our engineer today is Alan Mattis. Our producer is Alan McClellan, and I'm Virginia Eskin. A Note to You is made possible by the friends and alumni of Northeastern University. It's produced by Northeastern University in cooperation with WGBH Radio, Boston.